This is the only Strand Warlock build you will ever need in PvP, and I'm going to tell you why. I designed this build to allow you to constantly unravel, suspend, and throw out threadlings at your targets. And from personal experience, I can tell you that it is not fun to be on the other side of this build. These abilities, fragments, and aspects matched together with your favorite exotic of choice will make this build truly unstoppable in PvP. I'm going to go into full detail about everything in this build and why I chose to put it on it, and how all of it works together to make this build super fun to use. But before we hop into it, I'd like to introduce myself for those who don't know me already. My name's Epoxy, and welcome back to another one of my Destiny 2 build videos. Make sure to hit that like button if at any time you enjoy my video, and subscribe for more content from me. Now let's dive straight into the build. I don't know about you guys, but I think the Needle Storm super is super fun in PvP. It shuts down anything, and it's just really fun watching the threadlings that you spawn from your super just chase everybody. This is honestly one of my favorite supers, and it looks super cool. But yeah, moving on from that, starting with the aspects I like to run in this build, the first one is Weaver's Call. Anytime you cast your Rift, you will send out 3 threadlings that will chase down enemies, but if no enemies are in sight, they'll come back to you, basically following you around like a bunch of little green guardians until you come in contact with your next opponent, and then once again, they'll be thrown at them and they'll chase them around. The threadlings don't do too much damage. They do about 40 damage each, so, you know, do the math, they can do about 120 damage, but the hitbox is kind of weird sometimes, and you don't always hit them. But if you do, and you match it up with the Arcane Needle, which is the melee ability that comes with Strand, anytime you hit an enemy with your Arcane Needle, you unravel them. If you don't know what that means, unravel is basically a debuff that's placed on an enemy whenever you hit them with the needle, so that anytime the enemy takes damage after getting that debuff, a bunch of little projectiles will come out of the enemy and seek out nearby targets near them. So basically just chain damage, which is always nice. And the best thing about it is you get 3 charges, and if you happen to use the exotic known as Claws of Amkara, you can get 4 of them, which is kind of crazy but pretty fun to use. And going back to the threadlings, I think the most important reason I like to use these is because whenever an enemy sees these 3 threadlings chasing them, they're not just going to stand there and take it. It usually results in the enemy trying to jump or dodge away, so you're basically getting a free distraction while you're able to shoot them without them shooting you back with full accuracy, which of course is a very big plus in PvP situations, because you'd have to be a crazy person to sit there in a gunfight and let those threadlings just attack you like that. But yeah, that's the main gist of Weaver's Call. And then the other aspect I use is called the Wanderer. Tangles that you throw will attach to targets and detonate into a suspending burst, and we all know how fun being suspended is in PvP. And also with this aspect, anytime one of your threadling kills an enemy, it will create another tangle, so you can basically just keep suspending enemies, because these tangles have insane accuracy and aim assist. So basically what I'm saying is it's harder to not hit somebody than to hit someone with your tangle, so you might as well take advantage of the Wanderer's aspect just because of the fact that it's actually free kills. And then let's go to my abilities. My first ability, we have my grenade, and I'm using a shackle grenade, which is a grenade that detonates on impact and suspends targets that it hits. So even more suspends, which is why I chose to use this grenade, because what kind of Strand build would this be if you can't suspend everybody and ruin their days? But of course, it's really your opinion. I think shackle is your best bet with this build, but of course you could use threadling grenades, which basically just throws more threadlings at them, or grapple grenades if you really want to be like a hunter and just, you know, really push people and do damage that way. But yeah, of course up to you. I just prefer shackle grenade for this build. Before I move on to the fragments, I want to quickly go over the exotics you can choose for this build. There's 5 you can choose from that I feel like can fit pretty decent with the build. Of course, you have Claws of Amkara, like I mentioned earlier. You just gain an additional melee charge, which means you just get another needle strike. You can choose Necrotic Grips, which your melee causes damage over time. So anytime you hit someone with a needle, it's going to do poison damage to them over time, so it's also pretty fun to use. There's of course Ophidian aspects, which are always great choice for warlocks. Your weapon's ready and reload speed is very quick, provides small benefit to the airborne effectiveness stat for all your weapons, so always a good choice for PvP. And then what I always personally like to use for PvP, just because I'm very pushy, and the fact that it reloads my weapon makes me really love using it, is Transversive Steps. Especially if I'm using like a submachine gun or anything. Just the fact that it automatically reloads my weapon whenever I sprint is just really helpful in my opinion. And the last one that I haven't gotten to test myself, but it seems like it'd be pretty fun to use. It's from Lost Sectors. It's known as the Swarmers. Threadlings will spawn from tangles and unravel targets. So of course, just even more threadlings you can throw at people. So also another great choice for exotic. And yeah, that's the 5 I would pick. But I feel like the Swarmers would definitely be a pretty decent pick just because of the fact that they're fully customized around Strand. So yeah, probably looking at getting those. And those are the 5 exotics I would choose for this build. Now moving on to the fragments, which really bring this build all together. The first fragment we have is Sword of Evolution. With this fragment, your threadlings will travel farther and deal additional damage, and it also gives you plus 10 intellect. I'm not even gonna lie to you guys, this fragment is a must, because using threadlings without this fragment honestly takes a pretty big hit. The extra range and damage it gives is really important. I would definitely use this fragment. In the next on the list, we have Thread of Rebirth. Your strand weapon final blows will have a chance to create a threadling. So once again, more threadlings, and all you have to do is use a strand weapon. Some possible weapons that are strand that work really well with this build would be something like Rufus's Fury, Kept Confidence, or even Synchronic Roulette. Those are my favorite strand weapons to be using with this build so far. But of course, you can use whatever weapon you want, and you don't even have to use a strand weapon if you don't choose to use this fragment, so really it's up to you. The third fragment we have is Thread of Continuity. The effects you apply to targets, such as suspending, unraveling, or sever them, will have increased duration, so basically just another quality of life change for your build. And the fourth one we have is Thread of Mind. Defeating suspended targets will grant you class ability energy. I thought this one was pretty important because whenever you put your rift down, you get other ability energy too with the mods I have in this class, so just being able to get your class ability back as soon as possible is also very helpful. So all these fragments work really well together. You should definitely use these four. There's a couple others that might be okay, but there's one, it's called Thread of Ascent. When you activate your grenade ability, it reloads your equipped weapon and grants bonus airborne effectiveness and handling for short duration and gives you plus 10 mobility. So if you don't want one of the other four, you could definitely put this one into it. I just don't really care about having my equipped weapon reload because I use transversive steps, so my weapon kind of reloads by itself anyways. Depending on what you want, those are probably the top 5 I would use. But yeah, now let's move on to my armor mods and my stats. Starting with my helmet, we can see that I'm just running 2 strand targeting mods just for that improved target acquisition, accuracy, and aim down sight speeds for my strand weapons. And since I'm using a Rufus's Fury, that works well with that, obviously. Yeah, you can just change this out depending on what type of weapon you're using. And then for my gauntlets, I'm running impact induction. Causing damage with a melee attack will reduce my grenade cooldown, strand dexterity, just faster ready and stow speed for my strand weapon, then fastball for increased grenade throw distance. I just always throw fastball on there because when I don't have it on, I'm just so not used to it, and it's always just nice to be able to throw grenades a lot farther, especially since we're using our shackle grenades that suspend people. Being able to throw those more farther with better accuracy is going to be really helpful for us. Moving on to my chest piece, I'm just running 2 unflinching strand aims, but you could also change this out with whatever you want, of course. I might throw in another one for my sniper instead, but yeah, having unflinching aim is always nice, especially with an auto rifle when I'm just shooting so much. I don't want to be having a constant flinch and it's messing up my recoil patterns. And then moving on to my boots, you see I'm running transversive steps because that's just how I like to play. I have 2 stacks of Absolution. If you don't know what they do, whenever I pick up an orb of power, it reduces all of my ability cooldowns and they stack together, so I'm just running 2 of those because I want to be able to get my needle strikes and my shackle grenades back as soon as possible, and also my rift to get my threadlings out as soon as possible. And then the other mod I'm running on it is Innervation, which just reduces my grenade cooldown each time I pick up an overpower. I chose to put this instead of another stack of Absolution because I really want to get my grenade back as soon as possible because being able to suspend people is really important, and I only have 1 charge on my grenade unlike my 3 needle strikes, so I just thought having this mod for my grenade would be nice. And then lastly, on my bond, I'm running Bomber. Reduces my grenade cooldown whenever I use my class ability. So anytime I put my rift down and throw my threadlings out, I just get increased class ability energy, and other mods work together to also help with that. And then I'm also running Outreach. Reduces my melee cooldown whenever I use my class ability. So whenever I use my rift, I also get my needle strikes back as soon as possible, which is always great. And last but not least, I have the Reaper mod. Definitely the best mod you can put in your bond. Whenever you use a class ability, your next weapon final blow will spawn you an orb of power. So anytime I use my rift and I get a kill, I get an orb of power, pick it up, and it activates all my other mods. So all these mods work perfectly together to just make this build insane. But yeah, that's all for my mods. Now let's talk about my stats real quick. So I don't have the best stats, but I think my Warlock has the best stats at all 3 of my characters. I like to run 100 recovery and 100 discipline and then high intellect. I wish I get this up to 100, but I only have about 76. Recovery is always important just because you always want to get your health back as soon as possible. Especially in PvP situations, you just don't want to be sitting around a corner waiting for health regen for so long. You want to get right back into the fight as soon as possible. And then discipline, just so we can, get our grenade back faster and start suspending more people. And then intellect, just to get your super back quicker. It never hurts to have intellect. I wish I could get a little bit higher, but it's pretty decent what it's at now. Tier 7's not bad. But yeah, those are my stats. I always like to focus recovery, then discipline, then intellect in that order. Especially for warlocks, I think those are the top 3 stats, but that's also, of course, just my opinion. You can do what you want, but that's just a guideline. And before anybody cries about in the comments, yes, I know my resilience is 23, and no, I don't think resilience matters that much in PvP. As long as you have around tier 2 or 3 and up, you're fine. Trust me. Just don't have below like 20 or 10. You will get messed up. But yeah, that's really all I have for this build video today. Hope you guys enjoyed it and also enjoyed the gameplay I had in the background using the build. If you like the build, make sure to leave a comment below. Let me know what you like best about it. And also let me know what kind of build you want to see next. And just a heads up, I've been working on my YouTube membership program. Whoever joins it will get shout outs at the end of my videos. I'm even going to add a tier where you're able to play with me and even get some PvP advice and coaching. So if that sounds interesting to you, make sure to go check it out and support the channel. But as always, I appreciate you guys, and until next time, peace.